Well, I did my own preparation, then God now did his own, or got me to do. Initially when I started, I just began to make plans the way a man would make plans. So I wrote out a strategy document. I planned about how I would buy equipment. I planned how I would get office space. I planned the logistics of how I will get people to invite the drama group to come and do dramas. I planned how I would fund the ministry if I were to leave work, because I was working at that time and it was clear the nature of the work I did that I couldn't do that work and run ministry, so I was going to resign. I did some planning, a little praying. I can't even say that I prayed significantly because I was so sure God had called me to the work. So I prayed a bit, planned a lot, and within 3 months of planning, I was ready to resign from work to start ministry. And just before I resigned, I told my dad, I said, well, I'm planning, I think God has called me into ministry, so I'm planning to resign, and I'm going to start off this ministry, which was called Free Gift International. And at that time, he just looked at me, he wasn't sure what to say. And then he told me, he said, well, one thing he knows is that before any man gets up to do anything, he must do his homework properly. So he would just say, I should make sure I plan properly before I just get up and say I'm going into ministry. And so because of that, I decided that I wouldn't just resign immediately the way I was planning to resign, but I would give a few more weeks to think through what I was going to do and to ensure that I had planned properly. This was in March of 1994. And just at that time, in my office where I work, a project came up which required us going to Port Harcourt. So they estimated that the project time would be 2 weeks. So I told God, I said, well, God, I'm going to go to Port Harcourt. In these 2 weeks, I will pray, I will plan, I'll do all I need to do so that when I come back from Port Harcourt, then I will resign. And I felt the Lord said, no problem. When you come back from Port Harcourt, you can resign. So I went off to Port Harcourt for this 2-week job in the first week of April of 1994. And interestingly, when I got there, we started the work. After 2 weeks, the work was extended. They said maybe another few weeks. So the job began to extend and to extend and to extend. And while I was there, I started to have this dream. And it was a dream that was a repeated dream. Every time I would dream a variant of that dream. So tonight I might dream that I was in secondary school and we were about to write an exam and I couldn't find my notes, so I wasn't able to read. A few days later I'll dream another dream. I was in the university and I'll be preparing for an exam which is on Friday. Then on Thursday, where I'm reading, somebody will come and tell me the exam is not on Friday, the exam is today. What am I still doing? The exam is about to start. I always had variants of the same dream. The nutshell of each of those dreams was that there was always an exam or a test I was about to write, and there was something wrong that I would not be ready for that test. And I just kept dreaming the dream. Anytime I dream, I wake up and be asking myself, oh God, I will either dream I'm in secondary school, I will either dream I'm in university. I'll be telling God, look, I've finished, I've done NYSC, I'm working. I've been working now for like what? I've been working now for almost 8 or so years after graduating. So what's all these funny dreams I'm getting? And I didn't get it until one day, one Sunday morning, I was just walking into church, and I don't know why, as I entered into church, the interpretation of that dream hit me. And the Lord just told me, or made it clear to me at that time, that look, you want to go into ministry, you are about to write an exam and you are not ready. You are not prepared for the exam you are about to take. So I started asking God, I said, well, God, what do you mean I'm not prepared? Then he asked me, he said, my friend, you want to do drama ministry, eh? You want to begin to teach people about my word. You want to preach the Bible using drama. Then he asked me, say, how much of this Bible you want to preach do you yourself know? And truly, I didn't really know that much. I mean, I knew a bit. As most born-again Christians, we used to do a bit of reading, a bit of study, a little here, a little there, a little there. But then asked me, say, have I read the Bible completely? It's like, no. So what are you preaching? You want to preach a content you don't know, you don't understand. So I said, okay, I need to read the Bible. I went off and went to look for a Bible to buy, a study Bible. I bought a Dake's Bible. And then I told God, I said, okay, well, God, we need to study. So I started Dake's from Genesis and I started to read. To cut the long story short, I read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. I read all the notes, all the commentaries, everything. It took me almost 20 months. Now, interestingly, that job that was supposed to last 2 weeks in Port Harcourt continued to extend. Eventually, rather than leaving Port Harcourt, where I got to in April of 1994, I was to be there for 2 weeks. Eventually, I left Port Harcourt December of 1995. I was in Port Harcourt for about 20 months. In those 20 months, God kept me there, He cocooned me. I read His word, cover to cover, digested it. When I then came back to Lagos in December 1995, I was now like, okay, it looks like I am now ready to go and start the work of ministry. I also found that in that time, because I was away in Port Harcourt for 20 months, I was staying in a hotel, I wasn't cooking, I wasn't bothering anything about food or finances or anything. I had money. I invested almost all my money from that 20 months. I used it to buy equipment. I invested in publishing books. I did all sorts of things to prepare the ground for the takeoff of Free Gift International in 1996. So when I came back from Port Harcourt, after a few months, I gave 3 months notice where I was working. I resigned and I started Free Gift International in September of 1996. Well, that's an interesting question. I think you can look at it from 2 dimensions. You can look at it maybe one as the leader being in part-time, running the ministry, and also being full-time but working with part-time people, because we've played in the 2 spaces. When I initially started ministry, I started on a part-time basis. Even though I resigned, I was offered the opportunity to work part-time. That's an interesting testimony of its own. So I worked part-time and started the ministry, but I had one full-time person working. Later on, a few other people came on full-time, but I, who was the leader, was part-time. Much later, I then came on full-time, but I was still working with people who were both part-time and full-time. Now, how do you manage it? Clearly, I believe God gives everybody his own model to work with. When you are part-time, there are certain levels of restrictions or limitations you have. For instance, when you work part-time, your time is limited to availability in the evenings and on weekends. And that can severely limit the scope of what you have potential to do. And that, I think, has been one of the big challenges with ministry, because you have a number of people who work with you when you are part-time. They are passionate, they desire to do the work of the ministry, but somehow they are sometimes encumbered. And the irony of it is, when you have good people, the more good people you have, if care is not taken, the more encumbered those people are. Because it's the good people who will be workers in church. It's the good people who are dependable people in ministry. So just as you are trying to use them for ministry, the church is struggling with them to use them for church work. The office is struggling to use them because they are the good people in the office. And so you find out that they are somehow encumbered. And then as they also begin to grow and their families begin to grow, they begin to rise in their places of work, you just find that there are so many things on their hands. They are desirous to do the work, but the availability is just not there. So when you then now have people who are full-time, it puts you in a totally different dispensation, because there you have people who are fully in control of their time. You have 24 hours more or less a day, give or take, when you are sleeping, to do whatever you want to do. So when you have full-time resources, the scope is, I don't want to say it's unlimited, but I can use that word in a sense. It's almost unlimited. You can do almost anything you want to do once you set your heart to do it, because your resources are not encumbered by other commitments. So I think there is a place for both. It depends on, I think what God is calling you to do at any point in time. So as a ministry, we started off as a part-time ministry. I, as the leader, was part-time. Most of my drama ministers in the ministry were also part-time. But over the years, we have evolved and we have now come into a team where we have full-time drama ministers, full-time staff, and still a few volunteers who work with us. But we have more people now on the full-time platform than those that are on the part-time platform. Hi, my name is Damilola-mikebamiloye, and I'm the creative director here at Free Gift International Film and Theatre Ministry. Please follow me on Instagram at ayo.yoloye. But more importantly, please follow Free Gift International Film and Theatre Ministry on Instagram at Free Gift International. Also like our Facebook page, Free Gift International, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Free Gift TV. Remember, God's thoughts towards you are for good and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. God bless you, and thank you for watching Director's Cut. Ministry perspective, clearly Mike Bamiloye, he's probably one of the people who knowingly or unknowingly, probably unknowingly, helped move me in the direction of drama ministry.